coming. Yes, you are. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, okay. So, well, I need to get ready here. Just so, that's my name. I'm wearing this for Mark's benefit. He's always spelling it backwards. So now you see how I spelled it the right way. But, you know, it's nice to see a bunch of young people out here. You know, you can tell how old I'm getting when I look at Larry as being one of the young people, you know. So, but anyway, but, you know, it's kind of like coming home. Wife and I, we both pretty well grew up in Kansas. We was in Kansas, we were married. Our kids were born in Kansas, and then 51 years ago we moved out of Kansas. And this is our first move back to Kansas. So it's been a while, you know, and stuff. But anyway, I want to share today a little bit of maybe why we're here, and what caused us to be doing. You know, I'm a Kansas farm boy. That was, you know, we have this American dream, and that was my American dream, to be a successful farmer. We did it the rough way. We had dairy cows, and you know that's a 7-day-a-week thing. And but we had them for about 20 years, and then we got rid of the dairy. But it's, you know, that was what I wanted to do. I could have got a scholarship and we used to live close to KU, and I could have went to Kansas University. But you know, we had milk cows, and hey, you know, I'm content being on the farm. And but I guess God had other plans for us and stuff. And but you know, I grew up in a Christian home. We were Lutheran. Sometimes we was 30 miles from the nearest church or Lutheran church, and when you had milk cows, it's kind of hard to get away. So, you know, I knew who Jesus was, but you really didn't have a relationship. But so anyway, and we need that. We need to know a little more about it and stuff. But I guess I like to say conversing with Jesus, talking with Jesus. When we pray, we're literally talking to Jesus, and we need to take time to listen to what he's saying back. And it might not be verbally, but we need to know his word, and then we can understand maybe what the situation is in our lives. And anyway, we could understand that a little better, what he's saying to us. But you know, I guess when we had moved to Texas when we left Kansas a little over 50 years ago, and had the milk cows. We had a farm. We was on the Brazos River down there, and we sold our milk cows, and we got into just, you know, a mix of cattle and stuff. We had about 400 head, and we bought high, and then it went down. And we owed on the land. We had a harvest store silo, and we owed. In a year's time, the cattle market dropped about half. We had a crop failure, and so it was, you know, we knew things were about to the end of farming deal. And you know, I prayed, knew enough about Jesus to pray, and I prayed, and you know, God help us out of this mess, and he did. He got rid of the whole mess, you know. And but whenever we have something that stands between us and God, you know, that's almost like sin, because it keeps us from getting to know him and turning to him. And so we finally had, you know, I wanted to be a successful farmer. That was my American dream, and we did have one of the top dairy herds production-wise in the state back in the mid to late 60s. But so, you know, I guess we achieved that, and God thought it's time to move on to something else. But anyway, we We didn't take out bankruptcy, we could have, but we just made a deal with the bank, you know. We loaded some stuff up in a pickup that wasn't paid for, and we drove off and left the cattle and machinery, everything, and started all over again. But you know, and you think about what's important, you know. Well, you know, I had my health, my wife had her health, we had 2 kids that's healthy, and you know, would you give away one of them or let one of them go by the wayside to save your farm? But we went on, and as we made different moves, grew up carpenter work too. Dad was a carpenter, and we always did carpenter work, so I started in doing that. And then we had time to do something. We wasn't on the farm tied down to the milk cows all the time, but we had time to get involved in church and church activities. You know, people, well, did you start out in the ministry, this and that? Well, I guess 40-some years ago, we started doing mission trips. I don't know if you ever heard of Cursil. It's a neat thing. And volunteers in mission, lay witness mission, promise keepers. We've been involved in a lot of different things before we started doing this. But so God was able to use this old farm boy, Kansas farm boy, maybe to reach out to people. You know, 50 years ago, the last thing I figured I'd be doing is up here talking to somebody about Jesus. So, you know, we can't say never, because we don't know when never's going to change things. And so he made a big change in our lives, a big impact. And I want to look first in Matthew chapter 6. And we think about, here we got Jesus talking. We think about what Jesus is saying here. And I'm going to start reading it. Chapter 6, verse 19. Do not store up yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and rust do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is where your heart will be also. Then on down to 24. No one can serve 2 masters. Either you will hate one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. You know, I guess when you think about that, you know, of course, I was a farmer. We have probably a lot of farmers here, and we're in a farm community. And, of course, we know there's certain things we have to do, you know, crops and everything to provide for a family. But I think what Jesus is talking about is where's our priority? You know, do we devote everything into just making more and bigger and better enough? Or are we doing it, you know, I guess you think about, do we have what we need or what we want? And I think too much of the time people are more concerned about with what they want than what they need. And, you know, we always kind of want more and stuff, but, you know, where does Jesus fit into this picture? You know, we can do a lot of things. We got to provide, but are we leaving him out? You know, when I think back to our time, it's been 45 years or more ago, and you know, of course, with milk cows, it's rough. It's, you know, you got 8 or 10 hours every day just doing chores, and and then of course, we always had crops and stuff too, and hay. But so it was hard to find time to work with Jesus, and that's into the scenario there. And so anyway, I guess he thought, you know, this is what my change is, change in life. You know, and think about the first commandment, thou shalt have no other gods before me. And, you know, we kind of think, well, okay, we don't praise this God or Buddha or one thing or another, but, you know, too much of the time, what we have, what we do, like it said there, if our love for money, you know, it's not the money that's evil, it's our love for money and what we do to try to get money. And that can become our God, or it might be our vehicle, our farm, could be tobacco, drugs, alcohol, different things can become our God. And, if we get devoted to that, well, Jesus is losing out. And, as Christians, we know where our future is, and it's not just down here. But we have a different future to look forward to. He says, don't store up treasures in down here, but store up treasures in heaven. And we do that by doing His work and serving Him. And so, but anyway, like I said, I grew up knowing who Jesus was, but we didn't have that relationship until, he got rid of the farm for us. So we had time to start doing things, but, and God was able to use that, what happened to us, and I've shared it with many different things, but probably 6 months after we lost our farm, I was working with another guy, and we was going to go out to eat with him, and he brought a friend along. And this guy, night before, he tried to commit suicide. He'd lost his business, and his wife left him, and, he was giving up. So I was able to share my story with him, and before the evening was over, he was laughing, going on, and we heard he got back together with his wife and stuff. But, too much of the time people think, you can't understand, nobody's went through this and stuff. But so God was able to use that as, what we had done was able, to share with another guy. And quite a few years later, I had I'd give a testimony at an ashram, a camp. It's East Stanley Jones talked about it in India, and it was being apart from the people, set apart from the people. And I got up and shared a testimony what Jesus had done in our life. And I had about a 40-year-old gal come up afterwards, and she says, "Can I talk with you?" And we went and talked, but she's saying, well, her dad always wanted a boy, and he never got a boy, so she had to be his boy. And they had a farm in Montana, and she said, 6 months or so ago, they lost the farm and went through bankruptcy like we did. And, as she's sharing this, as she's started to cry and stuff and apologized for crying, she says, well, boys don't cry. I said, well, I do, so we was able just to talk and to share. And a lot of times, people just need to have someone that understands. I probably couldn't understand an alcoholic or a drug addict because I've never been there or done that. But, there's a lot of things in life that you can understand. And, when you live a long time, you go through a lot of different things. And so I guess we have that working for us. But anyway, and now I'll kind of give you a few things of what we've been able to do because God allowed us to do it. And, sometimes when we say I do to God, it's just like say I do to marriage. You're going to get what you get, and you got to deal with it. And when we say I do to God, we better be ready for what He throws at us. And, since I retired, per se, we've been doing this going, and I think we've been to 14 different churches and 4 of them twice. We've been from Arizona, Nebraska, Kansas, and clear to the Oregon coast, clear to the Canadian border. 2 years ago, we was 4 miles from Canada and stuff. But so we've moved all over, and we've had to move over 30 times in the last 14 years, which that's a piece of cake. You get used to that. But people wonder, well, how can you do this? How you do it? But I guess we made that commitment to Jesus. We made that commitment, and so anyway, we're living up to it. Of course, we was doing this through village missions and stuff. But when we worked volunteers in mission, and we helped build a church in North Pole, Alaska, and we worked in homeless shelters in Maine, and we've been all over the United States, to Mexico, and doing different things. And but I guess God allowed us to be able to do this. And this is what a Kansas farm boy can do. I mean, you know, when you work on the farm, you learn a lot of different occupation to be able to do. And of course, Dad was a carpenter, so we started doing carpenter work when I was in high school. And so you have a lot of different abilities. And but we just need to go ahead and say I do and do it. But, you know, I was interviewed on television in Maine. I was interviewed in newspaper in El Paso. We've been on television in New Orleans. And, I mean, we've been a lot of different things that God allowed us to do, but just because we changed our life. And we had to change our American dream to something else. And of course, we had our own little Promise Keepers. I don't know if you men might know what that is some. And put them on up and had quite a number of people come. For a couple of years, we were the head of camping in the Methodist Church in Montana, and we traveled from church to church on Sunday morning talking about camping. We worked with James Dobson and focused on the family, putting on camps and stuff. So we've had a lot of opportunities to share the gospel and do what Jesus wants, maybe, hopefully. We hope we make a difference. But you know, when you think about the 12 disciples, what were they? Of course, we know they had the fishermen, James, John, and Peter and Andrew, and fishermen, and others, Luke, a doctor. But, you know, they could have been Kansas farmers. You know, they didn't have to have the biblical training or that. Now, Luke might have been because he was a doctor, but, you know, but they just need to be willing and listen and share. And we look at what they accomplished, what they started 2,000 years ago. And you look at the country now, the world now. Of course, looking at the country now is not real pretty, but you know, just look what they was able to accomplish. And so, but we just need to be willing. And I guess heard about a second grade class teacher. She told the kids there, you know, and going along, and she said, why don't you just all draw a picture and stuff, you know, time to do that. And she walks around looking over the shoulders of the kids, and she sees this one little girl drawing, and she says, well, what are you drawing a picture of? She says, I'm drawing a picture of God. And the teacher says, well, we don't know what God looks like. Little girl, well, in a minute we will, you know. So, but, you know, we need to be that definite about, you know. How would you describe Jesus to someone that knows nothing about Jesus? You know, and we need to think about, you know. We know how a little kid, I mean, they can be definite and, oh yeah, this is Santa Claus and this is that and everything else. But you know, we need to be that straightforward sometimes when we're sharing Jesus and talking about Jesus. And so in Isaiah chapter 55, I'll start reading at verse 8 and 9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. So here we see Isaiah was talking, and you know, God's different. You know, we can't even comprehend how just what all God is. Someone can make the earth, make the people, make everything there is out here, and that's so beyond anything we can imagine. But he says, my ways are higher than your ways and thoughts. So, things that God does, we don't understand a lot of times. And I'm going to share a little bit, but, like I say, the last thing this old Kansas farm boy thought he'd be doing is doing a lot of things I've been doing for the last 40 years. And but God has a way of changing things. I want to look in Micah, just one verse here in Micah, and we think about that. Chapter 4, verse 12. But they do not know my thoughts, know the thoughts of the Lord, and they do not understand his plan. Another place in the New Testament, God talks, it says, he planned from the beginning of time what the plan is for each of us, what we're going to be doing. And we don't know, we don't understand, and we just have to take it when we come along. And so anyway, sometimes we have things that happen to our lives that really affects us, changes us. It's like when we lost the farm and we had to move on to something else. And that was a major event. Like I say, I was probably sick for a month, just a gut ache, whatever, because I knew we was going to lose everything. We just, things were going to become due, and wasn't nothing we could do about it. We could have took out bankruptcy and kept part of it, but it wouldn't have been enough to survive. So we thought, hey, we'll just let the whole thing go and we'll start all over again. And so we did that, and like I say, a year later we was able to take vacation, and when you had milk cows, you didn't have one of them. And so anyway, and then there's other things that God can do, that we see God at work and how it can change our lives. And I'm going to share something that happened to us. I want you think about if this had been you that it happened to, how would you respond? What would you do? And because it's like I say, it was a definite change in our lives. We was living in northern Minnesota. We left Texas and we moved to northern Minnesota. We wanted to change. It was a change. And but which, of course, the winter's pretty long up there, and I was doing carpenter work. And kind of late in the winter, we was out of work, out of money. And so I went into town to talk to a friend of mine who was selling real estate, just to see if somebody maybe bought a house, needs some work done or this and that. And so I went and we talked, and well, no, but he said there's a guy there from Iowa that's looking to trying to buy a house in town. He'd been there a while and doesn't have no luck. So, and he said, well, he knew I had 40 acres of land 50 miles north of town there, and almost to Canada, and just timber land. And he says, you might go talk to him. And I thought, well, I wasn't even considering that, go to somewhere and try to sell somebody something they wasn't looking for, And so anyway, I think he told me maybe he was staying in a motel, but I never paid much attention, and went ahead and did stuff I needed to do in town, and started heading out of town, leaving town, and God spoke to me. I don't know if it was loud. It just hollered in my ear, because it was, you forgot to go see this guy. And I said, no, I didn't. I wasn't going to go see this guy. I wasn't going to motel room to try to sell him something he wasn't looking for. And so here I am arguing with God while I'm turning around, driving back to town, and I don't know where this motel is, the name of the motel, not just like blah blah here, Jones Motel. So drive across town, down the motel, go inside the room, or inside the walkway where the rooms are. Well, I don't know what the room number is, this and that, just like something, room 17. So I went and I'm knocking on the door, and the guy inside, he's a born-again Jew, a Christian Jew, completed Jew, whatever you want to call him, and he'd been sitting there praying and reading his Bible, and he told God, he says, if you want me to have a place up here, you're going to have to send somebody to my room here, you know. About that time, I knocks on his door. So we go in and talk a while, and next day I went back. I took a deed to the land. We drew him up prints for a cabin to build on this place, and you know, it was all done. He was an interesting guy. He was very, very knowledgeable of the Bible. He wrote literature for seminaries and Bible colleges. So you ask him a question about something, and you got a 2-hour answer, you know, and you just hang on. But you know, so we went in, so inland built a deal. But you know, we've seen. I mean, I can have faith, but if I wanted to go try to find a job, I'm not going to go to a motel and start knocking on doors. Or I'm not going, if I want to buy a place, I'm not going to go sit in a motel and wait for somebody to come to me, you know. But that's how God can work. You know, he's got these things planned, and, you know, and he made it very evident to us that, you know, he's out there. He's real. He's capable. And all we have to do is be willing to try to carry out what he's asked us to do. And when we hear him, you know, when he talks to it, like I say, I think he said something out loud when you forgot to go see this guy, because it was just like it was shouted in your ear, however it was. But you know, there was no doubt about it. And, you know, he was answering our prayers. He was answering this guy's prayers. But he put us together and in a way that we would never do. So but we just need to listen to him when he speaks to us and what to do. And, you know, I guess like I say, his ways are different than our ways. What he can do, we can't comprehend. And so, but he can do that. And, you know, when we don't understand, it don't mean we're wrong. It maybe means we're human. And but God's God. And how he does things is, you know, just a way that we wouldn't do it. But we just need to listen to his word and be faithful to go ahead and do it. And, you know, and if we feel like he's asking us to do something, maybe we ought to, don't doubt him, maybe do it, try it. You know, and like I say, this was not my chosen thing to be doing, but we've been doing it for quite a while. Since I got old, then I started doing this, you know. And maybe it wasn't good for much else, I don't know. But, you know, it's, we just need to have the faith. And I guess we don't know if we can do it unless we try. You know, usually failure's a lot better than success. And because we learn more, we learn the lesson, we learn it the hard way. You know, and that's, of course, that's the way my school, I went through the school of hard knocks, and, you know, and got my education out behind the barn, whatever you want to say. But you know, that was, we learned by doing. And I think having a maybe advantage over somebody that just went through seminary or something like that, that's young, that they don't have any life experience to share, and they can't understand people a lot and what we're going through. And of course, to me, understanding farming's been pretty easy for me, because we've been there, done that, and we failed at it. So see, we're an authority on it. When, you know, when we was in Texas, I went up at we was close to Texas A&M, which is supposedly one of the better agricultural colleges. Maybe not as good as K-State, but anyway. But I went and I'd argued with the top guy up there at A&M about on crops and planting and how to do and everything. But we had experience in it, you know. He had book learning, which that deal didn't mean much. But just an experience, I think, is a good thing. And, you know, and putting our priorities in there, we had one of the guys we known for quite a while, one of our last churches. Grew up in California, from California. He was in the insurance business, but he was a workaholic, and he became a Christian mostly after that, but during that, but he lost his family, got divorced, his kids wouldn't have anything to do because he was always too busy making money. He made quite a bit of money, but then he found out what he had to give up to get what he got. And, and he had to learn the hard way too. And it's not good. And we have to think about what's more important. Is knowing Jesus, serving Jesus, more important than making money? Is being there for a family, raising them and having a relationship with the family. Is that more important than making money? And, you listen to the news and the stuff today, it seems like it's all about making money. But, like we can't understand a lot of time what God might be telling us. And some of the things in the Bible, it's hard to understand. It don't seem to make sense, But it's kind of like this preacher and a couple of elders were standing outside the church one day and talking, and they'd put a sign up, and here come this guy kind of speeding by, and he hollers out the windows, he said, "You Christian nuts, why don't you just leave us alone?" And then they heard a big crash in a second, and the preacher said to the elder, he says, "Well, maybe we should have, instead of putting turn around now, the end is near, we should have said bridge is out," so, but sometimes people don't understand where we're coming from. They don't understand why we do what we do, and believe what we believe. And we had 4 different churches in Oregon and Washington, and it's pretty bad out there. It's pretty bad out there because they said like 3% of them go to church regularly, and so there's not much Christian influence out there. And to them, we're just a bunch of wimps or whatever. So it's hard to reach them and get them to understand why we believe and what we believe. And I guess we need to have a good answer for someone about that. And and I can share what happened to me, but everyone's different. Everybody's has a different witness talk, a different testimony to share. No two's the same. And it might be that you could reach someone that I couldn't. I know when we wasn't real active in the church and the pastor would come out to see us, we was down in Texas and invited us to church. Well, what a friend of mine meant more to me than what the pastor did. So, I think they say 85% of the people that show up in church come because neighbors invited them, not necessarily the pastor. Pastor might be able to keep them there or run them off, one or the other, but it's more up to the people. And so anyway, we just need to be part of that. And but experience we go through in life can change who we are, what we are, how we think, and what we do. And it's very important. And we don't know if we can do it until we try. And it's too easy to say, well, somebody else is better at that. I'm not good at that or something. But maybe we didn't try. Let's pray. Dear God, we do thank you for Jesus. We thank you for your love for us. We thank you for the things that we go through, that you allow us to go through, even though it can hurt, dear God. And, and we think at the time, this is awful, this is terrible. But you have a reason for it. You planned in advance what our life is going to be. And we just don't understand. We get caught up in the world. We get caught up in our own things, dear God, and we we're so busy doing what we want to do that we don't maybe take time to look around and to ask why me, Lord? And but we think of Jesus, that him willing to go to the cross and die for people that today that don't know him, that dear God, they're saved if they accept him, but they got to come to you. They got to come to know you and ask you to be part of their lives. And you died for them 2,000 years ago, and you knew at the time. And we just thank you for that. And dear God, we just ask for your guidance. We thank you for our chance to be here and Mingo and get to know some of your children here, dear God, and be part of this family. And it's been a joy serving you through some pretty rough places and situations, dear God. But we just thank you for the opportunity that you give us and this opportunity that you give each one of the people here, dear God, and just help them to know your will and be willing to do your will in their lives. We just thank you now in Jesus' precious name. Amen.